here we go again, another week. Thank you for those who watched our last video on YouTube and TikTok. Just in case you didn't know, the TikTok video is just a small part of something larger, which is on YouTube. So you can either go to TikTok for the abridged version, so to speak, or you can go to YouTube for the complete version. Plus, probably in a few weeks, we're going to put it on Spotify also. So those who don't care to look at our faces can just listen to us on Spotify. Speaking of that, Spotify, remember those times when we just had LimeWire and stuff and radio? Now we have Spotify. Nobody listens to radio anymore. I remember one time my students and I were going out for lunch. So that we rode in a car, and the first thing they said was, "Does anyone have Spotify?" So I asked them, "Don't you listen to FM? What's FM?"
Wow.
That floored me. I mean, I came from radio, I came from FM and AM, and they didn't even know I existed before I got to meet them. So anyway, so looking at those things, the transition from radio to, or even television to Spotify and to YouTube for that matter, a lot of people now are quite concerned about the emergence of AI or artificial intelligence, right? How is it affecting your job, your people's job, and the industry in general?
My job, George, well, it actually makes it a little bit easier. There are times, I'm too lazy to do my research or too lazy to type something up. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll just go to AI and say something like create an outline for a training program on whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it will right away, it will just give me like an outline of things to consider. But of course, I still have to do my individual research on those subtopics.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, it made thinking so much faster.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it positively affected me.
Uh-huh. Same here. Like if I'm stumped with how I'm going to start a deck, for instance, PowerPoint deck, I ask AI to help me out. Give me an outline on this topic. So once I get the topic or the outline, it's much easier. In other words, it's your handy organizer, especially if you're scatterbrained like me. Sometimes it's so difficult to somehow find a direction. So AI has tremendously helped me. I'm not saying that I copy everything from AI, but at least the outline, the organization is there. It's just like remember in high school when we had our experiments, our science experiments. We started out with problem and then observation, experiment, and then conclusion. So that's how it is. That's what I use AI for. Now, I was wondering, a lot of people are so scared now, so concerned about what AI will do to our jobs, especially the BPOs. Do you actually think AI is going to take over everything?
It might.
Really? Like how?
Well,
Hmm.
what I know so far is that you still need a human being to trigger a question.
Yeah. Okay.
And for example, like I know, there's this company who told me that they use AI to write their business letters.
Okay.
So instead of, like, because what most people did in the past was they type something up, they go to Grammarly to check the grammar.
Hmm.
But now, like, the whole thing gets generated by AI. Like, for example, write a letter of apology saying this and this and this. And I don't know, like a few seconds later, they have an apology letter.
Hmm.
And it's so in short, it helped them, but you still needed a human to trigger the instruction. I guess the danger lies when someone says, well, the instruction or the question could be triggered by the clients themselves,
Hmm.
bypassing the need for, let's say, a customer service agent from triggering the request. I mean, eventually it could happen, George. Like I know, like decades before AI became a thing, there is this bank that used an IVR, interactive voice
Hmm.
response, where
Yeah.
like you could say something like, "Tell me what you want to do today," and then
Hmm.
they would go and say something like, "Tell me my balance." So
Hmm.
this was decades ago.
Precisely. Right.
So we have no idea how much more sophisticated it could become in the future.
Yeah, well, just like what you said about writing business letters, for instance, doesn't Microsoft have that? Word has that. PowerPoint has that. The templates, so to
Oh,
speak. Even CVs, resumes are now being generated by Microsoft PowerPoint or Microsoft Word. So it's no different from AI, I suppose. What really concerns me about that is there's one time, probably was it last year? I think it was last year. I gave a workshop to some techies, cloud people. During one of those lull moments, they told me, George, can you just talk for about 5 minutes or whatever? So I started talking. They were recording it. Next thing I knew, they let me hear something. It was my voice. It was me talking, reading a script.
wow.
See? So that really concerned me because they could use my voice for something else, right? So I guess that's one of the dangers. And I was saying that time, yeah, it sounds like me, but there's no emotion involved. It still sounds like a machine. But from what I hear from a lot of colleagues nowadays, they already have a solution for emotions. We had that before. The boodle boodle, the people who call our maids and say that they need money, and it sounds like they're employers. So that's how it goes nowadays, and that's what I'm very concerned about because you're still in the corporate world, and I'm very sure it has affected your company or your industry. What I'm so scared about is probably in 1 or 2 years' time, we will run out of things to do, especially in training, right? Because everything's going to be automated, right? Like right now, there's LMS already, right? The learning management system. All you have to do is feed it, and it just delivers everything to the users. How do you think that could be solved or that could be overcome?
So, George, if I could react to the first thing that you said
Mm-hmm.
about, someone recorded your voice and then they generated,
Mm-hmm.
voiceover out of that. So
Mm-hmm.
this was a big issue about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's that, for example, let's take Voice Bunny or
Mm-hmm.
even Fiverr.com, where they
Mm-hmm.
pay you to record certain scripts.
That's right.
And there was a report of narrators being asked to record a script which did not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but that script made sure that all the possible phonemes are recorded. A phoneme is like the smallest unit of sound that could be
Mm-hmm.
recorded. And out of I don't know, let's say you recorded all of the vowels, all of the consonants,
Mm-hmm.
all of the possible combinations of vowels and consonants, which aren't that many,
Mm-hmm.
they could generate something very accurate based on the recorded phonemes.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I mean, there's even AI where you just look at the camera from certain angles, say certain expressions, and they can actually generate a video of you talking. Like you could pretend, for example, that the prime minister of a certain country is delivering some sort of a state of the nation address when really it's AI.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, going back to the narrators or the voiceover talent, they were so shocked
Mm-hmm.
that someone can now use their voice, generate a full script, and they did not get paid a single cent for that. Like,
That's a problem, right?
and George, there's so many things that I see all over social media where you have the voice of who's this guy? I forgot. It's not James Earl Jones, like the other guy who's done a lot
Morgan
of
Freeman,
Morgan Freeman. Yeah, they
right?
were able to do that with Morgan Freeman's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? That's so scary, and he doesn't get paid for that.
Precisely. I don't know if there's a connection. I get a lot of inquiries about communication skills and everything. The misconception is good communication skills is you speaking perfect English or perfect Filipino or whatever, and having a really great voice. And I think that's one of the reasons why AI voice generated things were invented. It was because of that. Normal people like us might not be able to deliver as well as AI.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons too. Like if they
Uh-huh.
if they deal with AI, you just load the script
Yep.
and then it reads the script. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you go to a human, The
Mm-hmm.
human, of course, has to set up the equipment, maybe go to a studio or set up their own home studio.
Mm-hmm.
They'll edit it, and then it takes some time.
It really does take some time. What was your worst recording? How many takes?
The very first thing that I recorded, it was a Condura commercial, George. Like
Uh-huh.
Condura, you have a better choice. Like I got to take 64.
Mm-hmm. And what did they use?
Old fashioned, that was the old fashioned. You go to a recording studio. There's a
No, what did they use? What version did they use? What take did
I
they
have
use?
no idea, George. I
You
have no
know,
idea.
my worst was, I recorded something. Took me about 125 takes. They use take two.
Ah,
It really takes a lot to control your temper when it comes to those things. So when we started recording, I already noticed the director and the producer didn't really know what they wanted. So they just kept asking me to do another take, do another style, a version, another version, until finally I hardly had any voice anymore. The editor was so pissed already, and eventually they used take two. That's the sad part. Now that won't happen with AI, I suppose, because with AI, all you have
yeah.
to do is give instructions, and that's it. You're gonna get what you want. But that brings me to, of course, our listeners are not AIs. And what am I trying to drive at here? If you want to have a fighting chance against AI, your communication skills should be down pat. Like, what do I mean? First of all, you need to be understood. That's number one. You need to be understood because AI, you can easily control the speed and everything and even the clarity. So you have to somehow be better than that or maybe equal that. Number two, just remember to, I don't know, I'm a stickler for grammar. Or is it still valid that grammar should be part and parcel of every communication method? Or do they disregard the correct grammar?
Well, I guess if the big brands are able
Uh-huh.
to afford good copywriters and good ad agencies, the grammar
Mm-hmm.
would be fine. But there are a lot of commercials, I guess, George, that are done with a very low budget,
Mm-hmm.
where they probably just get any right. They probably just get their relatives to write a script.
Uh-huh.
I hear a lot of grammatical lapses in there.
But that's the problem. I mean, does it mean to say that for you to be correct, you have to be expensive? Is it just an excuse because you don't have any budget, so you get what you pay for? Isn't that a cop out?
Yeah, but I guess a lot of business owners are probably not even that particular.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, as long as they can produce some sort of a commercial, they'd be okay.
Mm-hmm. And you hear a lot of those things.
Even on radio, George, like even
Oh
on the
yeah.
radio. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's definite. I mean, on radio, they do it live, especially the DJs. So you hear thousands of mistakes, thousands of errors, and they get away with it. And the problem is the listeners think that's correct grammar and they follow it.
Yeah.
There's a pet peeve of mine. I don't know if you've heard of this. I'm a go there.
Very informal,
Uh huh.
very colloquial.
Yeah. My concern is the listener. They will follow it. Before you know it, it has the multiplier effect already.
Have you heard the latest song of Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga? It has Ima. Here it is. So I'ma love you every night like it's the last night. Ima.
Right. Uh huh. Even that Bruno Mars Silk Sonic song, a very popular one from last year, 2 years ago. It all also had that.
But that's your pet peeve, George.
That is my pet peeve.
Here's the literary thing about it, George. Like, well, it was my mom who told me. Like, she told me
Uh-huh.
that there's such a thing as a poetic license.
Oh yeah, they always say that. It's always an excuse. Artistic license, right? Okay, fine. If that's what they want to describe it with, but I still say,
Well, I'm not going to use it.
yeah,
And
but what's the point of teaching grammar to in elementary and high school and even college if you're still gonna do that? See, That's not even colloquial as far as I'm concerned. It's basic slang. It's
It
street lingo,
is. It is. It
right?
is. It is street language. Yeah. You know how they say the learners of a second language or a foreign language tend to be purists compared
Mm-hmm.
to the speakers of the first language.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
an example could be we have our own version of that. Like in the Philippines, we have anyali
Oh yeah, right.
versus
Anyali.
anong nangyari or ansabi.
Oh well. Again, it brings us back to the point as long as we're understood, right?
Uh,
I guess that's why Bruno Mars is successful. I don't know, but I just don't know if AI would be able to catch up on that.
oh. Well, the thing about AI is you just have to train it. I mean, that's the word that they use. You have to feed it with the information
Mm-hmm.
and then it figures something out. Like Georgie, it wasn't, like decades ago again,
Mm-hmm.
they programmed a computer to play a chess match with a grandmaster.
That's right. Uh-huh.
I don't remember the details, but I
Gary Kasparov, if I'm not mistaken, it was Gary Kasparov, the Russian grandmaster, or Anatoly Korchnoi, one of the two.
did the computer win versus the grandmaster?
Nope.
They
Mm-hmm.
say that in order for AI to be truly, truly successful, it has to be sentient.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have consciousness.
Got to have a human brain. So going back to your employees, aren't they concerned or they just don't about?
Well, I know of I know some developers, George.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a programmer, apparently it becomes so easy with just Google. Like you can just
Mm-hmm.
say, like write code that will do this. They can get it off of Google, but now they can even get it off of Chat GPT.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's made their lives a lot easier. But I don't have a clear example of how. I mean, well, there's one thing. For example, reservations to a
Mm-hmm.
hotel. I imagine that you don't really need a human to do that anymore,
Mm-hmm.
or even reservations for plane tickets. I mean, pretty much everyone does it on their own. Or what
Uh-huh.
some people do is they can even just do voice commands, book a flight from this to this.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tried that though. So I'm sure, Georgia, there's so many things that I haven't tried to do with AI.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting. I
Yeah.
guess my point of view is I want to see how it will make life better, but I'm not familiar with how it can make life worse.
Yeah, that's something to think about. On the right side of AI, I consider Siri AI, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I had my iPhone yesterday, and the flashlight just went on,
Woo.
and I couldn't figure out how to turn it off until finally the Siri icon appeared. I was trying to press so many things, nothing was happening. So the Siri icon appeared, and for the first time, I said, "Siri, turn the flashlight off." It turned off. I was amazed yesterday because of that, and I told myself maybe it's about time I started using Siri for for simple things. But personally, I don't use Chat GPT. I think it's Gemini, if I'm not mistaken. And I also use Bing.
Bing, isn't that a search engine?
Yeah, it has an AI.
Mm.
The nice thing about Bing, it's a AI, whatever. It gives you it gives you the sources, so it has a bibliography for every information you ask for. In
Mm.
other words, you're not going to be charged with plagiarism because
Yeah.
everything's there. All you have to do is cite it.
George, I have friends who they got into trouble in school and they
Uh-huh.
were asked to write a letter of apology. And there are like, I don't know, like four or five of them.
Hmm.
And they just used Chat GPT, write a letter of apology, and then they ended up submitting
The same
exactly the same
same
letter.
thing,
So, the professor said, "This is not look, even your letter of apology isn't original."
right? But you know, I heard there's now an app which could catch you if you use Chat GPT.
Hmm.
That's for professors. Anyway, hey, that's I was thinking of this. If ever we're gonna be using that app of yours, that voice changer of yours, maybe we could give tips on voiceovers because that's a hot topic. Also, I get a lot of requests for that. How to do voiceovers, how to get into the business and stuff. Maybe that's a cool topic we can talk about next week, and we can demo right there and then,
Cool. That sounds like a great idea.
right?
Yeah,
Maybe we could look for some scripts.
that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. So voiceovers and stuff, and using AI and whatever. We continue with all these things that we talked about today next week. Thanks for joining us. I'm George, and that's Harvey over there.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye.